Welcome, Buff fans, to the latest and last edition of our opponent previews. As we're talking Kansas State with Ryan Gilbert of, sorry, Go Power Cat on 247sports.com. I had to get the right name there. But yeah, for the 24/7 Sports Network, friends of ours, a lot of 24/7 writers I've talked to over the years. And so, Ryan, appreciate you joining me.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
So you've been covering the Wildcats for a few years now. So you've seen some good football.
Yeah, for the most part, I think ever since that 2020 season that a lot of people want to forget about, it's been pretty consistent for Chris Kleiman's program. And I know a lot of people are upset that the ceiling has been 8, 9 wins, but in perspective, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, and for perspective, it's Colorado. It's been a lot worse. Colorado would love a ceiling of 8 or 9 wins every year, but let's start there because I think last year was probably, from the outside looking in, was probably a disappointment to K-State fans, and that there were higher expectations than what last year wound up being, and especially with that 7-1 start, and then to finish November not very well and fall out of contention for that Big 12 title had to be disappointing for this team, right?
Yeah, the expectations were very high in 2024. And I think really the peak of that season was out in Boulder, beating a good Colorado team and a thrilling ending. But you were looking at a true sophomore quarterback. And so, in hindsight, looking back at it, I think those expectations were just a little too high. And Avery Johnson now in 2025, this is kind of his year to take that step forward. There's a lot of what are supposed to be better weapons on the offensive side. Matt Wells, a brilliant mind, is now the sole offensive coordinator. So
Yeah.
feels like that was maybe the stepping stone for what now is supposed to be more of a special season. I know fans are always wanting every game to be a win, but I think it's more realistic. It's more tangible here in 2025 for K-State to maybe get to Arlington.
Yeah, and they are once again considered one of the favorites. I know the Big 12 did not do a preseason poll, but if you look at the magazines and the top 25s that people put out there, K-State's up in there. And so the expectations are there because there is a lot. I mean, I know they lost DJ Giddens, but when you return your quarterback who's pretty good and you return your star receiver in Jace Brown and they're still loaded at running back, you're going to have that. And so let's start on offense with this team because you mentioned Avery, who obviously is a very good dual threat. They liked him well enough that I don't know if they let Will Howard go, but I mean, it was when Will Howard leaves and goes to Ohio State, it's like that's okay because we got Avery Johnson, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that was a pretty mutual decision
Yeah.
for Will Howard to leave. But yeah, this is a big year for Avery. And I think the best example is this was a game at BYU last season. It was the first Big 12 road game for Kansas State. They had played at Tulane, but that's not really an intimidating environment. But everything just went wrong in the matter of a couple minutes out in a really hostile late night atmosphere. And Avery Johnson, you could see that he was rattled. He was a young quarterback that, I don't want to be harsh and say that moment was too big for him, but he panicked. The whole team panicked. But who do you look to in times of trouble? It's the quarterback. And Johnson didn't really respond well to some of the misfortunes of that game. I think the next week later, though, they played Oklahoma State at home. Avery Johnson threw a pick rather than letting it fluster him. He calmed down and showed maturity. So he grew a lot last year, just as far as the mental side of things go. But he's got to be better with his decision making, accuracy. You don't have to wait till somebody's open, right? You can anticipate some of those throws, and he had double-digit interceptions last season. So he showed off his upside, but kind of cutting back on some of those mistakes will be key for this offense.
Yeah. And how will this offense be without DJ Giddens? I mean, Dylan Edwards comes back, the former Colorado Buffalo who went off in the bowl game, and we know
Yep.
out here how talented he is. But they've also got, I'm looking at here, who was the other backup that they had last year that played really well at running back?
At running back
Yeah.
would have been DJ and Dylan pretty much.
Oh, there was another guy though.
Joe Jackson, he'll be
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
the two this year.
Joe
Yeah,
Jackson, and
yeah,
then I mean they're loaded at running back again. So with Jace Brown back, and I know they love their tight ends. They got some offensive linemen to replace, but overall, how do you think this offense is? I mean, are they pretty confident this offense with Avery can take a next step up?
yeah. You look at Dylan Edwards in the bowl game, and that was his one opportunity to really showcase his skills as a RB1 because DJ Giddens, NFL player, right? Like it was tough for him to show that over the course of a year, but in the bowl game, he he absolutely checked every box that you could want. Now, for such a small back like that to 20, 25 touches a game over the course of a 12, 13 game year or season, that might be tough, but he showed that he can do it. The offense, though, as a whole, when you had a player like DJ Giddens, I know some weren't overly happy with the play calling from Connor Riley, who was the offensive coordinator last year. He's now off to the Cowboys as their O-line coach here in the NFL season coming up. But you didn't have to really get like overly creative. Does that make sense? When you had somebody you can just say, hey, go up the middle, get us 5, 6, 7 yards, call
Yeah.
it good. Now with Matt Wells, who, like I said, is maybe more of a creative mind, and you've got Dylan Edwards is ready to take that next step forward. Jace Brown had the game winner at Colorado last year with a couple minutes left, and then a couple of guys they brought in, Jaron Bradley, Jerron Tibbs, a couple transfer wideouts. The expectations are high for them. Chris Kleiman's track record of wideouts in Manhattan, period, have not been good. So I think everybody's a little hesitant to buy too much stock into the wideout group, but on paper, it's supposed to be good. And yeah, the tight end room is genuinely the deepest tight end room you'll see around. I mean,
Yeah.
Lincoln Kira is a 5-star that comes in as a true freshman, but a number of returning players that caught multiple touchdowns last year. I think it's 4 guys caught multiple touchdowns for K-State last year in the tight end room, and then you had a 5-star coming in as
Yeah.
well. So they should be. Avery Johnson's going to have a plethora of eligibles to get the ball to, and the offensive line. I don't know if you saw this, but George Fitzpatrick, an Ohio State transfer, supposed to be a starter on there, had a uh, medical, something heat related, we believe, but not sure if he's going to be able to give it a go. I would not anticipate him being 100% anytime soon. So the
Yeah.
offensive line is honestly an underrated part of the game, but that might be the key to the season for K-State, just with guys staying healthy and guys being able to click and gel together with a bunch of newcomers on that O-line, because it's only 2 returning starters.
Yeah. And that's a group. I mean, that's an offense. I'd still just expect it to be, you kind of expect K-State to put up 30 some points most games, right? And I think Avery Johnson, to me, is he's that quarterback when you look around the Big 12, like that's the guy that's going to take the next step. And in fact, when I did our preseason all Big 12 votes, I picked Avery Johnson as first team quarterback. I think the popular vote is Sam Levitt. I think Avery Johnson takes that step this year, and so I think that's going to be a huge key for K-State. But the offensive line obviously is the big deal. But I think Avery is poised for a pretty good year.
Yeah, it's reasonable to expect him to be that guy, right? It's not going to take a miracle. It's not going to take something crazy. Like he set himself up well. There's the pieces around him. He's a 4-star guy, one of K-State's best ever gets out of the high school ranks. It's time for him to just go show it.
Yeah, and defensively, they're usually pretty salty. They were a top 50 defense last year. Lost some guys. We were talking before this. The secondary's got to be rebuilt a little bit, but man, they got some run stuffers on the line, and I mean, Austin Romaine might be the best linebacker in the conference. So, talk about that defense. So, start with the front seven. I mean, how good is that group up there?
Yeah, your linebacking core is about as consistent as you're going to get. You mentioned Austin Romaine. Des Purnell is another a Kansan who's just steady Eddie, and so you're feeling confident there. Austin Moore is a guy that left last year, but he's, with all due respect, he's a replaceable guy as a starting linebacker. So K-State's going to be okay up near the trenches. That I mentioned, the tight end room is very deep, but the defensive ends are very deep as well. And K-State does lose Brendan Mott, who was a pretty a player that made a lot of noise getting to opposing quarterbacks and stuff. So they lose him, but that's still such a deep room. I think you're going to see 5, 6 guys rotating in there
Yeah.
regularly, and obviously at tackle, Damian Alalio, Usose Amalu both come back as well. So you're pretty sharp there. And the secondary, I'm sure that's where we're going to go next, is
Yeah.
very dicey. You lose a couple of NFL guys, Jacob Parrish, a cornerback, to the Buccaneers, and then Marquise Siegel gets drafted by the 49ers. So 2 guys get drafted, and then Keenan Garber, also from the secondary, signs with the Vikings. And so you're realistically losing like 3 NFL guys back there. And Kansas State, I think you're going to see a drop off in talent, maybe in playmaking ability and speed, and some of those parts of the game. But mentally, Kansas State had a number of breakdowns in its secondary from a season ago. And I don't want to say it's addition by subtraction, but I think above the head you can get some better play that might come with the cost of not as good of an athlete, but that'll be the key for the secondary. Gunnar Maldonado, safety coming in from Arizona, has got a lot of experience under his belt, can be a leader in that defensive unit. But that's probably the key for the defense is replacing that talent from that goes off to the NFL.
Yeah, and that defense again, I expect it to be pretty good. And do you like the secondary? I mean, do you think that that's a group that is going to by mid-season, late season, be not a liability, and that they can kind of match up with that front group?
Yeah, you'd hope so. I mean, it helps. It would help if an opposing quarterback only has 2.5 seconds to get the ball out, and that
Right,
makes your quarterback's safety's job
right.
a heck of a lot easier. I think you're probably not going to see as many big plays given up from the secondary. There might be
Mhm.
just some dinking and dunking that eats them alive from time to time. But overall, I think there is, and I don't even know who's going to start at cornerback. Like Zason Rich, and there's a couple guys that got some valuable uh, time in the bowl game. We mentioned Dylan Edwards. I mean, a number of guys for K State were able to get some experience, but I think there's still a lot of question marks maybe at cornerback spot. So K State's, I mean, that might make or break the defense right there, just
Yeah.
cornerbacks alone.
So this team overall, I mean, where do you think they fit? I mean, they don't ease into the season, that's for sure. I mean, they go
Mm-hmm.
off to Ireland and play Iowa State in a conference game right off the bat. That's I was talking to the Iowa State writer. It's like that's not a game that makes or breaks your season, but it can sort of it can set you up really well, right? Either
Yeah,
team, whoever loses it, can recover from it, but it sets you up really well if you win that game. And so,
sure.
talk about this team and just that game in particular, like the way they start this year.
Yeah, K State does play 7 days later. So win or lose, you've got to come back to the
Yeah,
across the pond and get ready for, albeit a North Dakota team, but still, right? That's college football. So Kansas State can't dwell on it, win or lose. And Chris Kleiman actually made that decision to want to play and not take the week off and just keep it going, right?
yeah,
Get those funks out of your system in week one, and then you're cruising. So it's an important game. But to be honest with you, man, K State in 2022 lost to Tulane in the non-con, who ended up to be a pretty damn good team. But it was Tulane at the time. Everyone thought the season was over. K State goes on to win the Big 12. And I get that that wasn't a conference game and there's some differences there. But at the end of the day, man, Chris Kleiman's proven that one early season loss isn't going to 100% define this season. But if you were to talk to every K State media member, I'm probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in terms of just my confidence that K State gets to Arlington, just because of the Big 12. And one, obviously the unpredictability of it, but number two is just the Big 12's got so many good quality teams up near the top. You open up with Iowa State, of course. Texas Tech's what they've done in the NIL with acquiring talent is, we'll see if that pays off. And you got to go to Baylor, right? Kansas State doesn't have, and there is no such thing as an easy schedule or a hard schedule in the Big 12 just because it's so hard to predict. But there's just so many quality teams up there. Arizona State, and it's very reasonable to expect them to be good. And then down at the bottom, Colorado, Oklahoma State, Houston, any of these teams that aren't labeled to be front runners, there's going to be a team or two that shocks you and jumps
yeah,
out. In early November, you're talking about them maybe going to Arlington. So that was one of my takeaways just from Big 12 Media Days early in July. Just the amount of quality teams up near the top. And Kansas State, we live in this bubble here. It's so easy to get sucked into saying that everything's going to work out and Avery Johnson's going to be perfect and stuff's going to happen. I think K State's got a good team. Don't get it twisted, but I say like 8-4 has kind of been the record I've been floating out there. Whereas if you ask anyone else on the beat, it's like 9-3, maybe 10-2. So
yeah.
obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if they get to double digit wins, but you got to be real with yourself and look at the rest of the conference, and the quality and the depth of this league is as good as any.
Yeah, well, I know it'll be exciting. It's the last game of the regular season when Colorado goes out there. I hope it's a game that has some meaning for both teams, and not just bowl eligibility for either one of these teams, but that maybe there's something riding on the conference title race. And I know Buff fans, not all of them, but some of them are excited to get K-State back on the schedule and in that those old Big 12 days, right? And go out to Manhattan. So that'll be kind of fun. But last thing before I get you out of here from your perspective, are K-State fans excited about having Colorado back in Manhattan for the first time in forever?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's great for the rivalry. It's great for the Big 12. It's great for college football. I mean, I was what 10, 11 years old when Colorado left, and so I've got memories of it as a kid. But now it's
Yeah.
great to relive that. So yeah, I know that was a really dang good game. I know K State fans, Colorado fans were going at it a little bit from some people I know that
Yeah.
were in the stands, but I'll take a sold out crowd, with some rowdiness over an empty crowd any day.
Yeah, well, it'll be
Right?
fun. And hey, I look forward to seeing you in Manhattan Thanksgiving weekend. It seems like a long time from now. There's a lot of football that has to be played from them, but I'll look forward to seeing you out there, Ryan.
Yeah, we're gonna blanket it'll be here, but yeah, it should be a lot. Everything we said here is subject to change, right? With
That's
11
right.
games before kickoff. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, who knows how many of those guys are injured or whatever, right? And hopefully
Yeah.
not. But yeah, lots of things will change. But we'll see you in November.